Today's session is called The New Revenue Engine, GPTs for Sales Teams and B2B Websites. And Mark will introduce himself in a second, as I joked earlier. I think Mark, this is your third time hosting SAMI, and unlike SNL, we don't give out that proverbial jacket, but maybe by next year, if you do two more sessions, you'll get the five-time SAMI Speaker
I would, I
Award.
would be I would be humbled to get to that point.
Yeah, and just give me your size after the call, and we'll start
Yeah,
working on
yeah.
that and going that way. So this year we've had some terrific programming on SAMI, and not surprisingly, AI has been just a big portion of it. And we've covered it at strategic levels, but what Mark is covering today is the little things that are so important. And we forget it. We talk about using AI to transform the entire organization. I think a lot of CEOs have delusional expectations of AI. So what Mark's going to talk about today is really using AI to all of a sudden control the dialogue. And because if prospects don't know about you and they want to find out more, they're likely going to do a search, or they're going to go into, Claude or ChatGPT and get stuff where you're not controlling the dialogue. And what Mark's talking about today is transformative. Remember, we don't trip over boulders, we trip over pebbles. And these pebbles, the return on this is going to be just absolutely amazing. And like every SAMI event, you should be able to leave here today. Mark's going to give you something that you can do within 5 minutes of this particular call ending. So the final thing from a housekeeping perspective is feel free to drop your questions in the chat. As Pam mentioned earlier, if you're new to SAMI, drop your LinkedIn profile, say hello, let us know where you're coming in from. That would be great. So without further ado, Mark, this is going to be a great session. I am excited this morning. I've had my espresso, so I'm in good shape. So let's talk about who you are, what you're doing, and let's dive into the topic.
Yes, I am going to share, make sure that my slides come up. Can everyone see that? So really excited to be here. I've been in SAMI since it was getting breakfast in the back of the Newton Marriott once a month, and I learned so much from all of the participants and speakers. So these slides are about 20 or 30 minutes of content by design. And the best part of SAMI, from my perspective, is the discussion. So please ask questions. Rob and Pam will moderate. And we should spend time talking about these things, not just me speaking at you. So that is from the start, I wanted to say that. Um, there we go. So I'll talk about Mark Growth Consulting and give a little intro into myself. GPTs and production AI. So we talk a lot about, as Rob said, the kind of AI is everywhere, but what is it really? Building a custom GPT yourself, something that you can take and do today. So I mentioned to Rob and Pam as we were joining that I'm going to a Lovable event tonight. I'm going to show you how to do something in ChatGPT that you can just go and do. GPTs for internal and external applications, the real meat of the presentation. We'll share our marketing and sales use case that we've built. Agentic and connected systems, what's next? What goes beyond this? And then just questions and discussion at the end, but please ask questions throughout. So Mark Growth Consulting, we do staffing, we do a lot of AI work, and we really enjoy that part of it. Everything from kind of building pilots and doing strategy work through building production systems. We'll talk about a lot of that today. Sumi up here is my chief AI officer. She runs a development shop. We have user interface and Python coding and N8N and Make agentic. We do all of those things for customers, and all of those things are embedded in this. And one of the cautions as you're going and building AI is it takes a lot of different skills. And you should pilot things, but then start to look at what it will take to bring it to production. It's not just one set of skills that you need. Andrea, who's on here, runs our AI projects. Like, she's had to adapt project management skills into program management for AI skills, which are like everything changes out from under you while you're building an AI project. And that's something we can talk about if people have questions. We've done AI work across clients, big and small. There are tiny use cases of like, how do we get a master services agreement edited faster, all the way through production, website creation. So really cool stuff that I'll share a little bit more about. keep losing the cursor. So I really like Paul Raitzer. If people want to learn about AI beyond business conversations, Paul is the Marketing AI Institute leader. He does a podcast every week, and he does an an introduction like what is AI for marketing right now, about once a month. I highly recommend you sign up for the podcast and sign up for his intro. I take his intro about every 6 months. So he just recaps everything that he's talked about in the podcast, and it evolves over time. But Paul would say AI is the umbrella term for algorithms, technologies, and techniques that give marketers superhuman capabilities. I think this is really important. The things that I do with AI every day are superhuman. I am running a consulting firm without full staff because I can look at AI and say, write me a proposal, and it does it instantly. And that is a really important thing to take into your teams and your functions, is that you can make people superhuman in your organization through AI. So a little bit about GPTs. And just some of the things that Rob said at the beginning. Like, AI starts with experimentation, and you should be doing this. You should be encouraging your teams to try new things, new technologies. You should look within the bounds of your IT and security teams for, like, what can we do? And if they're not providing you guidelines and guidance on compliance, what does intellectual property look like with different tools? What tools are standard? You should push them harder, because your company needs to have policies around this, and you need to start to have a place to experiment and encourage your people to experiment, or they'll leave. If you don't let your people use AI, they'll hear that they need to be and go somewhere else, right? We do a lot of strategy work. We ask clients, like, what use cases are the most valuable, and then we prioritize them based on the value and cost to build them. And that is a really important layer that a lot of companies miss, of the back of envelope math of, like, if this thing did perfect, what would be the value of it, is a really important step that a lot of companies miss. Today, we'll talk about production AI use cases in this band, from production deployment, analytics and insights, and workflow integration. But you can go beyond that into automating the training so it gets better constantly. We have an example of that later in the deck. And a scaled operating model where you start to build your teams around the AI function rather than vice versa. And those are places where you'll see companies go in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Hey, just a quick question. Thor had thrown something in there, and maybe it'll provide the context later on. For those of you using AI systems right now, feel free to drop in the chat which ones you are using,
Yeah.
and we'll provide some information to Mark as well on that.
And Rob asked the question earlier as we were joining. A lot of this is agnostic to which AI tool, and I just encourage people to use whichever one they like best and try new ones constantly. So we were talking about Claude, Cowork, and Code, and Lovable, that are like the kind of darlings right now, because they're doing the best at kind of some of the value work. There's no reason to think that OpenAI won't do a release on Friday that makes it better than either one of those. So, like, you can't settle on one, and you should constantly be thinking about, like, what use case is best in this tool, what use case is best in this tool, and where should I try the next thing, right? So GPTs, generative pre-trained transformer. I have it on another screen because I didn't want to get it wrong. It is you see it in ChatGPT. It is the letters that were from the original Google paper 15 years ago on how systems could learn with massive amounts of data. So we talk about that ChatGPT 3.0 was probably the first any of us saw. It was the first time they consumed all of the information they possibly could, and the GPT got smarter. ChatGPT got smarter because of it, and was doing things that were well beyond what they pictured. Now we look at that same technology and say, how can we make it really specific to us and our use case and our need? And the letters GPT have come to mean the chat box in customized ways. So what you'll see in here is built in multiple AI technologies but the interface for sales and marketing is the custom GPT. So, and please ask questions about that. Like there's agentic in these, there's packaged AI systems, and GPT is the interface to that sales or marketing would see or that end user would see. So I wanted to take a second to make that point. GPTs in production should have some qualities, so when you start to think about that chat box that people can ask questions to that you've trained to do a job, it should be grounded in approved company knowledge. You should only present the things you're supposed to. Microsoft Copilot and its kind of mid 2025 version was exposing the CEO's calendar. And when you get into things that are not shouldn't be exposed, you get into real problems within a company, right? Connected to systems and workflows. This is only valuable if it gets the thing to the next step, right? And if you're stuck in a place and then have to constantly copy and lose all the knowledge, it's not doing its job. Designed for a specific business outcome, you should have value in mind at every step. How do I become more efficient? How do I create more scale for the company? How do we get our message out to more people? Measurable over time. You can only manage what you measure. I don't know whose quote that is, but you all know it. We need to be thinking about getting better at each step, not building something and letting it sit there for a year. Governed for security, accuracy, or brand control. I had a client yell at me because a GPT could make a mistake. It was in training. And they said, what if it makes a mistake? And I said, we need to get past that. We need to understand that there is value to this and that sitting there and hoping for perfection is not going to bring your company forward, and get to the point where you control the brand, but you allow it to do things that it can do beyond what any human can write, and continuously approved with feedback and analytics. Right? That goes back to the measurable point.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, one of the things, and I had a meeting 2 days ago, um, and I don't have enough of a data set, but I've had meetings with enough companies to realize they're kind of using GPTs as a one-way thing. In other words, they'll get information, specifically they'll ask Claude or they'll ask ChatGPT something, and that's it. And I think it's important. You're emphasizing here is let's make this a two-way dialogue where your information becomes the core here. And I think that's the hump that a lot of organizations have to get over, right?
We'll talk about for the marketing GPT that what we're building now as the second phase of it is the automation to retrain it and do the follow-up demand gen in automated ways, because we have all the things that we would want to write. So we'll be able to write them systematically. And that will take it from a system that I look at once a day to a system that's doing work for me 24 hours a day.
Excellent.
Right. Really important point. We need to start with proofs of concept. We need to prove that this can work for people. We need to see the value of AI. People need to learn it and get better at it themselves. And we need to encourage that amongst our teams. There's personal value in those pilots. We need to then move to production and start to see corporate value. And we have clients that are in experimentation phase, and we encourage them to find the best and talk about building it as production. And we have clients who are asking us to staff teams of developers to build production things. And there is a very big difference in that. If you experiment at a personal level and bring things to a corporate level, dozens or hundreds of people can get value from it, and the scale just is mind-boggling of how much better your company can be. I always try to think about growth, not cutting. And we always encourage our clients to think, how big could you get when you scale with AI? Not how small could your teams get? Like that's not fun, and it's the reality that a lot of us will face in the future. But we think of it very optimistically as the reason why your company will grow. Personal example, this is the start of it all. So what we're talking about today really started because I tried something I heard on Paul Reitzer's podcast. He said, you can go create a custom GPT. And whether that was late 24 or early 25, it's about that time where ChatGPT, OpenAI exposed a feature where you can click on the left-hand panel and say custom GPTs and build yourself one. And this is one that I built and I use every day, and you could build for yourself today. So all this is going into the tool and saying like add or create new or whatever it is in ChatGPT, because I've created some of these and I don't even think about it because it's so obvious, right? This is a company research GPT. So I thought about, what do I want to know about a company that I'm about to talk to? So back to the scale of building a consulting firm in the age of AI, I don't have time to research every company that I talk to. I never will. But I want to be well researched. I want to be ready for the call. So this is the ability to do that instantly. Let me get out of presentation mode. This is a real link. I'll send out the deck, and this is a real link that people can click. I'm not logged in this Chrome browser. So Rob and Pam, I'll ask the crowd, tell me a company name. And it is that broad. I can do a startup all the way through a public company. Please don't do Google or Meta. It's just too much information.
We have a
We talked about
comment.
HubSpot. I was
Oh,
going to
we
say
have a
HubSpot.
comment in the chat, which is crossbeam.
Oh,
So
okay,
maybe
that's
we
better.
take it from
Crossbeam. Nice.
yeah.
All I did was type in the word crossbeam. That was less than 2 seconds of work. And this is now doing work for me. And I built this 6 or 9 months ago. And it is now getting all of my meeting prep ready. If I were having a call with Crossbeam, I would read through this, and I defined each of these sections because ChatGPT asked me questions about what I wanted to define, and we ask clients those questions, right? Like, what do you want this thing to do? ChatGPT asked me that. I answered it. It's telling me who their typical buyers are, next steps that I should go with, all the sources that it used to validate the information, the size of company is where I often spend a lot of time. This doesn't have to be right. 117 million, you might say, no, it's 160 million. It's the same conversation for me, right? So whether this is a $10 billion revenue company or a $100 million revenue company matters. The actual number, and as you get to private and startups, it's total guess, right? It is not important for call prep. And I want to make that point because perfection is the enemy of good. And this was no prompting, we didn't prepare this. So you can go into OpenAI, ChatGPT, you're paid or unpaid. I think you might be paid, but it's $20 a month, and go and create a custom GPT. Mine does company overview, market industry insights, competitive, social, marketing. It scores the marketing based on the built with type data that it can find about a company. Buying personas, marketing maturity score, and based on the kind of advertising they're doing, and recommendations for me. And that was something that I built in less than an hour that I use every day. So now I'm going to talk about how we present market growth consulting. So this is our homepage, and I advertise that people should come and ask questions to our homepage rather than learn from web pages. So first of all, we think of internal POCs as really important to learn how to do things for clients. So we are doing them to innovate ourselves, to showcase innovation to our clients, to learn how to do these things, because none of them are obvious and none of them are that hard. But if you don't try them, you can't figure that out, right? This is a demand creation asset. So I advertise this to get people to come to my site to ask questions, and then I follow up with them about those questions, right? It's demand, pure demand. And it's also to learn about how SEO and GEO, now AEO, according to HubSpot, are changing. Like, the world is changing. We need to all acknowledge that like, as you know, do some scenario planning. This is a Paul Reitzer thing. do some scenario planning. Do you think 20% of your customers are using LLMs to get to you? Do you think 50% are? Like, how would you change your spend with Google for keywords and your focus on SEO on your website as that changes, and make that good decision for your company and start to think about GEO analytic tools and writing for the answers, not writing for the SEO inbound. I have this question here. Does this replace inbound? Like, I think it does. And I think that's why you see HubSpot. There was a CEO video, that's what I've referred to a couple of times. CEO video this morning talking about that there's a new product called HubSpot AEO that is just to tell you how your website should answer questions for the LLMs, right?
Hey, Mark, question came in about did you connect your built with account with ChatGPT?
No, I don't use built with because I don't think that it's better than what I can get for answers in ChatGPT without paying for it. Built with was never that good. We've done a lot of technographic work with HG Insights and Built with and others, and they're any of the techniques for finding them. If I put in a job posting that I need someone who could use a tool like Eloqua or Marketo or HubSpot, it now thinks that I have all three of those. So it's never, technographic is only a starting point. We use a tool called Ghostery, which is an ad blocking tool to look at the active tags on companies' websites. And I would recommend playing with that tool or asking me questions about how I use it, because it tells me what tools are active on a client's website. And that's either right or they're not cleaning up their website and it's a marketing operations opportunity, right? But none of it's perfect. So this all started with an idea. This was last summer. Couldn't we build a website? Couldn't we build a website that had a GPT in it? We talked to a bunch of people in the Boston Any Excuse SAMI community, like people who are on this call, helped us define what it was. At this stage, we were like, what could we build? What tools would we use? And we were as extreme as not having a nav or subsequent web pages below it. And we learned from CMOs who were on this call not to do that. So thank you to the people that know who they are. But this was our original idea, was we're going to build an agentic system that would use Clay to take web content and video and proposal decks and call transcripts. It would store it in Pinecone, which is an AI database that does what's called AI chunking, mapping the answers to the questions. And we would build it all in multiple, best of breed AI tools with a ton of work, and we still offer this to clients. And there are some clients who want to do things so customized that the next slide product that we ended up using won't meet their needs. So we still offer this as a service. What we ended up doing was buying a tool called Webless. And if people want to meet Suyog, the founder of Webless, they should reach out to me and I'll introduce them. It is a prepackaged GPT that trains on your content. And we learned how to get that to be exactly what we wanted it to be. When I say we learned, I learned that it would answer questions from any content you put on the website. So I started building blog posts, which look a lot like frequently asked questions posts. And we continually update those with fresh answers. And the GPT gets better once a month. So if you look at the blog on marketgrowthconsulting.com, you will see that there are blog posts in there that are 10 or 15 pages deep. And that is because that is answers that we are training as close as we can get to the questions, so that when someone asks a question, it's informed almost directly from my answers.
Hey, so Mark, a couple of questions. One is, have you worked with companies that are looking for ways to replace lost on-site ad revenue with declines in web traffic? Any examples of how they can find new value for advertisers?
So a lot in that question. Everything is changing and you need to experiment constantly, and you should take part of your Google AdWord budget and segment it off 10, 20, 30% into investing in things that you learn from a GEO analytic tools. So you should invest in GEO analytic tools to see how ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, etc., are answering questions about you, your competitors, your industry. They use categories, not keywords, as the way to describe the types of things people ask about. And when you see how different sites are sourcing answers for your questions, you will learn about paid media that you should spend money on instead of Google.
Excellent.
I
Thanks,
could
Mark.
do a whole hour on that.
Of course. One
But that
other,
is, reach out if you want to talk more about that. It is a fascinating shift that's happening, and Google is investing as fast as they can in becoming the GPT that people go to replace search.
yeah, excellent. Thanks, Mark. And that may be a topic for the fall as well. So let's think about that. Sort of the inverse question. Last year we had Scott Brinker on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of SAMI discussions um, on the overweight tech stacks that we're all dealing with. And here you are throwing more logos at us and things like that. And in the meantime, CEOs are putting pressure on reduce, reduce, reduce. To add things like webless, what's it cost to get in for the people that are going to be doing some experimenting? I'm sure there's a free tier or something like that. Or what should we be thinking about? How much do we have to invest? What's the entry ticket price in what you're proposing here?
It's not cheap, and this is some of this is enterprise scale stuff. So we're building this for a $50 million consultancy for less than $50,000 for a new homepage that has AI integrated with it and is redesigned, tested, and production ready for their growth on $50 million. That is a good investment. Trend Demon and Webless are tools that cost in the tens of thousands of dollars. These are not. Trend Demon could be a replacement for 6sense or Demandbase for a lot of companies that aren't using the full capabilities of that tool. Webless is your ability to do this. It would cost a lot more for us to build it. So if you want the bespoke version of this, you're talking 2, 3, 4x of it.
Excellent.
Right.
Thank you.
So it's a cheap way to get in the door, and you could you can eliminate things. And when we do MarTech audits. When we look at MarTech audits, the biggest problem we see is that companies are buying 2 different versions of the same tool. So, and then not integrating them. So they'll have one feature that they can't live without from one tool. So they'll pay $50,000 or $100,000 for that, and then not integrated. And then everyone complains about that they're getting different results from 2 different tools. We see that over and over again. This is not expensive relative to that problem. I'm going to drop out again and ask another question. What question do you want to ask Market Growth Consulting? I'm going to do it live. This is the scariest demo possible. This is my website. This is production. Anyone can go to it right now and ask any question they want. What question? And put it in the chat, and Rob or Pam will read it off for me. And there's some type ahead here to encourage people to ask questions, right? These are just type ahead suggestions.
So a couple here. How are you accelerating GTM partnerships, and what tools are you using?
GTM partnerships. I'm going to do that as a single, just because the answer will be more relevant. I don't even know, because I have never trained it on GPT partnerships. I'm really curious what this comes back with. We assess your organization's most critical marketing needs. So it used partnership to say, like, I'm so curious now. That's a really good question. Unify marketing and sales leader to a single actionable GTM. We do GTM strategy work with clients, and if partnership was their way to market, we would be doing that work. But I can't think of a single answer. I've given the training that was specifically for that, and I think this did a pretty good job without it being in staying within. So we have positive questions, and we're doing this with a client now, where there are like 25 questions that multiple people are asking and asking variants of. I personally wrote and do the negative questions, which are all intended to be what you don't want answered under your brand heading. And this GPT answers those correctly as well by saying, this GPT is designed to answer these questions and not that question,
All
right?
right. So Mark, I'm going to ask you to hit the back button, and let's do it again if you don't mind.
No, not at all. I shouldn't
Um,
hit back. I just hit the X. I
this is great.
was
What does
following
chat?
your instruction. Go ahead.
I'm not sure this falls under you, but uh, what does ChatGPT tell prospects about my products? That may be more broad.
So yes, ask that question in an LLM of yourself. Ask
Yeah.
about yourself versus your competitors. Say about market growth consulting. I will ask it. I'm not quite sure on this one either.
Don't you love live demos?
Staff augmentation. So it did the very political thing of redirecting that question back to its training.
Oh, absolutely.
Appropriately. I'm happy with this. This is a good answer. A colleague of mine who was testing it for me said he does sales enablement videos, and he said it's wrong. It says you don't do sales enablement videos, and I said I don't do sales enablement videos. The negative was correct.
So Mark, is
That's
there a
his business.
reason? Just a question. Is there a reason? I mean, I guess maybe you want to get them to the contact us, right? So you did the one question. Did you consider doing sort of a continued conversation, or is it really just designed to get them to talk to you after the first query?
These three related questions were originally
Mm,
below. These are suggested follow-up reading where it's directing you
got
to
it.
some of the blog posts. We redirected the questions to be higher because we want people to engage more. But when people get to the end of the chain of this answering their questions, because it's only trained to do so much, we want
Yep.
them to contact us as contact me.
Right.
Yeah.
So what kind of analytics or different analytics are you getting with this kind of interaction on the site? Or is
That
that where
is
you're going
a
next?
perfect segue to the next slide, Pam. Thank you. So right now we are automating the analytics behind this. So Trend Demon is ABM data. It is an OEM provider of 6sense. For those geeky marketers out there, it's IP de-anonymization that maps who is on your site to their company. Webless itself tracks some basic IP machine ID information along with the question and answer. So I can read through the questions and answers and realize, like for that partnerships question, I might want to answer that differently. I can record my voice talking about that for a couple of minutes, make that into a blog post, and the next month it will be retrained and to include that and have a better answer for that question. And HubSpot, we have person tracking on the site. So for anyone who's received an email from me, it'll be known and click the email in theory. And for lots of others, it's anonymous until they eventually click an email. We're automating all of that into all access through Google Sheets just because it's not that complicated on any dashboards. But also automating the demand portions of that back into HubSpot and the GPT training of it back through to Webless.
So, Mark, we recently had a session on customer success with its cousin, customer support. And so, in a clarifying question here, so ideally we have the capabilities, and so what you're doing here is not, we're capturing all the questions. That's great. Um, and tell us more about the analysis. So, say you're a large organization with products, you're IBM, and you've got a suite of products, and you may be getting, 1,000 questions a day. Okay, what happens once those questions are in, based on
So
your architecture?
offer to your sales teams and tell me the response. What if you knew the questions your customers were asking before the first call? And then you start to say, oh, well, we know the company, we know the person, they've asked some questions, and now we can call them and say, would you like to talk about these 3 answers to the questions that you've already asked? You have a personalized email for a sales rep, and they're prepared with the right sales engineer or product person to answer the question for that company and that industry for that person and those questions. So my SDRs would have killed for that.
Yeah, this is powerful.
Yeah. All right, next one, sales messaging GPT. Any other questions on the marketing one before we go? Anything else you want to cover?
I think we hit most of them.
Okay, good. So sales messaging GPT. What?
Sorry to interrupt. When you say, what if you knew which questions you'd be asked on the first call, that's freaking brilliant. I would lead with that. That is wonderful.
Yes, and that is what I do, Thor. So when I go and follow up with people, I did this week. A Boston person at a company that I know kind of, but not really, asked a couple of questions, and without being creepy, I followed up and said, would you like to talk about? Right? I didn't say, I know you asked these questions because I saw you on the website, because that's being creepy.
Yep.
And we're talking next week. Yeah. Sales messaging assistant. So what is this? This was a client asking us to help them cut onboarding time. That was really the initial motivation for it. It was we have to teach our people so many sales pivots and have them be able to access so much content. They are an insurance benefits software company. So they allow an HR department to manage across multiple insurance vendors, right? So in different states, there are different regulations. They work with different insurance companies in those states, and every client has different versions of it. They have 2,000 pieces of content that sales needs to access regularly to get answers to those questions in those places. And so we started with, okay, let's build an AI sales assistant that's trained in those, but also learns from Gong transcripts of other better sales reps. So you have an onboarding challenge where new reps want to learn from previous reps, can't get access to the content, and need to write emails quickly for follow-up. You want to follow up on a conversation an hour later, right? This is 20 hours worth of work to figure out how to write the email, right? And it took 18 months to train the reps to do that. Behind the scenes, it's all RAG. So Rob's question earlier, this is agentic, right? It is presenting as a GPT, but the reality is behind the scenes is agentic. And unified sales layer. So we want sales to get access to all of this good stuff from SharePoint, from Showpad content, from Gong transcripts of their peers, and quickly be able to access that to write an email. It's really basic.
Yeah, Mark, quick aside for those who are new to RAG, do you want to just give a quick once over about what RAG is?
RAG is retrieval augmented generation. It is likely what someone means when they say agentic to you. It is the ability to write a piece of code or leverage a piece of code that reaches into systems to learn the thing that you need done immediately. So RAG can reach into your marketing automation or CRM or web content and answer a question that it's processing based on things that it just accessed. So an LLM, large language model, is trained on everything ever, right? And any agent will be taking advantage of that from OpenAI or Llama or Gemini, but it can also reach into a system and see what you updated just now. Right. So it's a combination of it is the best of both worlds of your corporate information and the world's knowledge, and you can tune it to be combinations thereof. And the punchline of this is we've trained the client to maintain this. We have some light maintenance hours for the AI, but this is mostly operated by the client. So the goals of it: reduce onboarding time, deal acceleration. If we answer the client's questions instantly, the deal is moving and it's more likely to close. This project was a beast. So we started with a RevOps team that asked us for a very reasonable amount of work, and They wanted to roll it out at their SKO 10 weeks later. And we said, great, let's do it. And then their CTO got on the phone and the project doubled in size and scope. As words flowed from his mouth, the project was getting more expensive. And like you need to account for that in your thinking that IT security are going to put restrictions on you that make things harder. And for us, that meant Microsoft environment. They said build it in Copilot. You can't use ChatGPT, you can't use Gemini. Build it in Copilot. Guess what? Copilot didn't work. We had to build everything in Azure. So like Microsoft provided the components, but we then had to code them. It wasn't a package tool that we were starting with. We integrated across 7 different systems. Integrating in a Microsoft environment is brutal. We spent a month on one integration. We needed to bring in a Microsoft cloud architect from Microsoft to do something that we thought was a day's worth of work. It's 2,000 pieces of content, so just moving 2,000 things. We moved 1,000 of them manually when I was building an integration for the other 1,000. Moving 1,000 things takes a lot of time. And custom coded in Azure tools to get the tone of the answer right is 400 lines of Python code. This is a diagram I never thought I'd be showing. These are all of the Microsoft components we had to run through to get from point A to point B. So everything was so much harder. And we ended up using, these tools along the way that we had never heard of and had to learn how to use. We have an in-house development shop that can figure this stuff out, but it was not easy and obvious. This was a really hard one. They're currently automating the client, and our resources are currently automating the Gong Showpad and SharePoint integrations. SharePoint is basically done, but I think Showpad is what they're working on now. This is the result. It's just a chat in Teams that you ask questions to. So I'm really proud of this because it doesn't look like anything special. It's just who the sales team chats with to get an answer to their question. So this is a screenshot. Obviously, this is logged in with Ali, our revenue engineer, who did a great job presenting this at a Boston Live event recently. She lives here. She's in New Hampshire. I'm preparing for a follow-up with a broker, insurance broker in this case, who is working with a mid-sized manufacturer in the Midwest. They pushed back on member disruption in our last conversation. I don't know what that means. Do we have a case study or testimonial I can share that speaks to this issue? This person could have had to go through 2,000 pieces of content in Showpad. Instead, they got this answer. Yes, use the MV transportation case study as your disruption proof and pair it with the OEM manufacturer's testimonial quote to reinforce employee impact even outside the same industry. So that is brilliance delivered, and again, I think about sales enablement in the past. I worked for Brainshark, a sales enablement software company. Like, we would have killed for this. Like, how can you possibly enable your sales rep better than they ask a question at 4:34 and get this answer at 4:35? And it's only slow because of Microsoft. If this were in ChatGPT, it would have been 4:34. Questions coming to the end of this one.
I think of how much we invested in sales enablement, and most of our sales enablement over the years, and sales enablement was one of my techniques for, rebuilding sales teams. And a lot of sales enablement was telling them where to find shit. And
Yes,
to
and
your
training them
point,
on where to find it. Yeah.
it's just, and the stuff was oftentimes out of date. And that became, so what you've done is you've eliminated the search and you've delivered the find.
No,
So the
and
challenge for organizations, Mark, is uh, I think what's going to keep organizations up at night, and maybe AI will solve this as well, is outdated content too. So are you able to, how are you guys, you're recognizing, you know what, we're kind of close on this piece. It's 2 years old. Maybe we have to update it. How are you addressing that?
We have a client that we're working with now. They have 400 web pages and they say they're all up to date. And I say, great. When the GPT answers in a way that you disagree with, blow away that website. Just eliminate it. It's wrong. So you wouldn't want it to feed into the answers. And in that case, they use webless as well. It'll update a month from now. So get that list, update them or blow them away by the time webless updates once a month, and you'll fix that answer. You'll fix that problem. But there's a willingness needed to be current. What I did for marketgrowthconsulting.com, I just eliminated all the web pages. So everything is in the blog. There's no web pages here. We didn't do any content work when we released this. It's all blog posts, which are my voice recording edited, my voice recording to ChatGPT or Gemini. Used to do a lot of Notebook LM, which is Gemini, and then me editing it before it's published. And these blog posts are as current, and it prioritizes the most current pages. So, there's executive partnership. I did write something about it, and that's probably what it was feeding from. But that eliminates it because I have no web pages. These are about us is just pictures and our client logos. We don't have any web pages here.
So
I recommend blowing away your web pages and thinking about it differently.
That's a little radical, Max, but it's working. So how does this impact? Now, this is assuming they're getting on your site, and as much as SEO is getting along in the tooth, we have GEO. How does that, because there are going to be people that are going to be looking for your services potentially, and they're not going to your site yet, but what they're doing is they're going on the broader web. How does this impact? You kind of have to balance two worlds, right?
Yes, and we don't see people balancing at all. We see people trying to do SEO better to get LLM GEO effect. And what they should be doing is analyzing the LLM results. So whether you use SEMrush or Ahrefs, we recommend Revere to our clients. You should use you should use a LLM analytic tool to ask questions en masse of the LLMs about you, your category, your competitors, that tell you what to write and how to write it and where to publish it. You should not think about SEO only in the age of LLMs. Period.
Yeah, we had a question come in, Mark.
Clients tell me they're spending 10 or 15 or 20% of their entire marketing budget on Google keywords still. And I say, carve out a big portion of that and invest in LLM analytics.
Okay,
and
got it.
Resulting work.
All right, so two of the same questions coming in from Dana and Gigi. Does the content update automatically and change it?
So in the let me just to go up one slide. I lost my cursor. In the sales messaging GPT, there will be an automation that will update the GPT constantly. So as new content is made available, it'll be trained on the new content and it'll return, similar to the way it returned these two case studies, it'll return a new one because we have an automation being built between Showpad and the GPT.
Fantastic.
For the web one, it updates once a month. So that is sufficient for me. I could pay for more than once a month, but that is sufficient for my needs.
Terrific. How does it, a message from Milan, how does it clean up outdated info?
It doesn't. You have to get rid of outdated info. So you can prioritize based on the dates things come in. But if you have outdated info, get rid of it. You should have done that in the SEO days before AI. And now you're getting doubly penalized from SEO and LLMs. And if the LLMs see that you have outdated content relative to the questions they're being asked, you are getting less credibility. So you're being lower priority. You're getting lower priority to be part of the answers than your competitors. get rid of it. Yeah.
All right, so we're coming up. It's 5. We got just a couple more minutes here, folks. Get some questions in. So, Mark, as we talk about this, I'd love folks to engage you folks as well. But for those who don't engage you, what does this mean for you? There's a lot of capabilities here. You're relying on some smart people. From an organizational perspective, I'm Rob, the CMO, and maybe I'm new to maybe I've come into a new company to clean it up. Where should I begin? What does my team look like? What changes, at the high level, what changes do I have to make?
I'm working with a nonprofit. I used to be on the board of directors for them, and the executive director knows what I do and reached out and said, how do I bring AI to my team? So I'll give you the advice I gave him. I said, tell everyone you're doing a showcase of AI things that the team has done a month from now, and encourage everyone to try things and give them access to tools if they want to buy it as $20 a month, and ask them to innovate, and then showcase the people who innovate. Some will and some won't, and encourage them. Those are your future leaders. It doesn't matter what level they are in your organization. If they are able to make progress with AI, that is who you should focus on and focus on keeping. And you'll instantly know who in your organization is curious, analytic, opportunistic. All the traits you would want from your leadership will be showcased, and several people will blow it off, not do anything, and you'll know what you have, right? So he was looking to bring in a consultant, bring in training. I said, don't do that. I said, start by finding out what you have internally already.
Yeah, great advice, Mark. And we're running out of time. Do you have your contact info that folks can get in touch with you on? And Pam, I am gonna.
Mark at marketgrowthconsulting.com. I'm easy. I
Okay.
I don't do heavy branding. That's not really the kind of marketing I do. So Market Growth Consulting made a lot of sense to me.
Okay. Excellent, Mark. Thank you very much. Pam, I'm going to hand this over to you to get the closeout.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob. Mark, thank you so much. I've had a couple chats about this, so I had a preview of what you're going to talk about. So very impactful. You're doing really, really cool work. Thank you so much. And I think in true SAMI spirit, it's like, what can you do at 9:01 when this call ends? I think you've given everybody some stuff they can think about, big and small, and where they need to go. And I love the advice you gave that nonprofit, and I would give the same advice to anybody, right? See who you have, see the curiosity, and see what you've got in-house first. Awesome. All right. Well, as we wrap up, let you get on with the rest of your day. The recording will be available next week in the meetup group. So you will get a ping when that becomes available. So if you're registered for the session, you will get that. We expect to have maybe 1 or 2 more sessions before we get to summer break. And so we will keep you up to date in the meetup group as well when we have new sessions to announce. But thanks everybody for joining us today, for contributing your questions. Robust chat today as well. And we will see you all next time.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone, for
everyone.
joining us. Bye-bye now.